So welcome to the first director interview of our TDS season. I'm here with Anita Laselva, who is directing our first show of the year, 5 Faces for Evelyn Frost. Hello, Anita.
Hello, Holger.
We've talked through some questions, so but I wanted to start by asking you about the particular challenges of this play, which, to those watching this who do not know that, is essentially made up of line, doesn't set the scene really, as no stage directions to speak of, and essentially just consists of a long series of status updates. Right? Spoken
lists.
By these characters, lists
Yeah.
and so on. So how does one approach a play like that?
That's a great question. I think my approach was really to go through the text with a fine-tooth comb, because for me there's always subtext, and so in approaching this piece, if you just look at the piece at face value, it just looks like it's 75 minutes of just people listing things that they've done, and on social media and showing people pictures of what they've done. But if you actually go underneath it and you look for the why certain things are being said, and the when, and also the connections, because when you look at how the text is laid out, it's quite clever, and at first it's not really that evident, but people build on everything. So this whole piece is basically, it's a competition, and I'm approaching it like a competition, in the sense that. And it's a satirical social commentary on how social media has taken over our lives, or so many people's lives, and how it's become so important and such a necessary aspect of being out in the world, particularly for young people. So it starts with these lists, but you, as a director, you always have to have a take on it, right? And so for me, I from combing through the script over and over and over again, I started noticing patterns of escalation, and patterns of when people started to compete, and patterns of when people changed the subject and why they changed the subject. And if you actually go through it, you can find the little trigger moments. What triggered, what line that person A said triggered person B to say the next line, triggered person C to say the next line, and there's all these amazing connections. And my cast one day, we were talking a lot about this, and they went off and they made this sort of mind map of all the different connections, and what led to what, and what led to what, and what led to what. And when we started looking at it from that perspective, it started to make sense, and we could actually start to shape it in a much more cohesive and accessible way.
Is that then? I actually wanted to go elsewhere, but this is cool. So I mean, the play kind of falls into two different types of scenes, right? Like, so the list, the things that seem to be happening exclusively on some kind of social media platform, and then there are the bits where the characters are talking to each other, and but it's also unclear what the social setting is. It could be on text, for all I know, right?
Yes.
Like, did those scenes in rehearsal work very differently, or?
Well, no, I think what I had to do was come up with a concept. And so I discussed this early on with my designer, Leslie Wright, who's amazing and who designed everything and organized the photos. And so I had to get I had to take a slant on it, right? So as opposed, otherwise it's just a bunch of people standing there listing things off. So we had lots of conversations, and I talked to Leslie about wanting it to be a little bit like a reality TV show. Because you know how on reality TV shows people are constantly competing, and you want people to vote for you, right? Or you get voted off because you're not popular or this. But some of those reality TV shows, like in my mind, I imagined that there was an audience here, and they were on a reality TV show, and everybody could press a button to vote for who had the most interesting things, to say, and who they liked the most. So, and then Leslie brought up the idea of like, those Bachelorette and the dating game kind of shows, where you're constantly putting yourself out there and trying to impress people, and putting on and showing all the great pictures and showing your great life, like a dating app, right? Like here, this is what I look like, and this is me, and this is my profile, this is my dating profile, and this is what I like to do, and this is the music that I like, and these are the fashion that I like, and these are the books that I read. So it was a combination of looking at like a dating show / reality show, and a social media kind of feed all rolled into one. So that was kind of the container that I've used for the whole thing. So then so within that container, we have each person presenting themselves and sharing with the audience all the different things that they've done with their lives. But we also have moments where, as we see in reality shows, the gloves come off and people start to compete a little bit, or they challenge each other, or they support each other, or they get nasty with each other. So that really fit into that idea of this sort of reality show kind of theme.
Where so the difference between those two types of scenes then is that like some of them are sort of very overtly directed at an imaginary audience. Maybe.
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas the others are sort of at each other, but kind of still in front of.
Absolutely, because as we know in those shows, the cameras are always on you, right?
Yeah.
So what we do, and what I think the actors have found, and what I've tried to do, is create a seamless sort of journey throughout this piece where we present to the audience, and while we're presenting, we also stop and talk to each other and come back to the audience, so that it's very fluid.
Interesting.
So I haven't actually broken up when they talk to each other and when they talk to the audience. It's all fluid. So that was the goal, that it was all fluid, that all this is being witnessed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. You mentioned the photos briefly.
Mm-hmm.
So let me come back to that. The play obviously calls for an absolutely insane number of photos.
800.
Illustrating, right, Jesus. Illustrating these characters' lives.
Yeah.
Right? So, again, in the process, right, like how, if I'm looking at this on the page, I'm like, okay, so these actors they're essentially acting out their backstory in these photos. But is that something, like, how did that unfold in the process? Like, how much did you direct the photos? Or
well, the photos obviously has to be part of the creative process, right? And how do we get 800 photos? So I kind of divided it up into what were there are different, the photos span all sorts of different things, from traveling to people to parties, lots of parties, especially with this demographic, because this is geared at like a 20 to 35 demographic age range, right? Probably in sort of mid to late 20s is kind of where all these characters live in terms of their age. So certain aspects of their lives would be different than what I would show people in my life, right? I'd be showing people cat videos, right?
Dogs.
But so certain aspects, and because what we do is we span so many different topics. I had to sort of make a plan in terms of what could I delegate to the actors and what could they do on their own at home, because there are whole sections where they just see them alone. Me doing this, me sitting at home, me blah, 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 me, making food, me putting on my clothes, right? Those are just the mundane, boring things. And so I delegated it to them, and I said, you do what you think your character would do. So they had a lot of creative agency. So I gave the actors agency in a lot of those things. In other ones, I sort of curated certain things. Like, for example, there's a lot of party scenes. So one of the things that we did, that we set up, and thanks to the amazing team here at TDS, Mikey and gang, we set up a party night in the Miss Theater, where our lovely staff, our team, our production team, set up what looked like a club. And we staged, and we invited all of TDS, and we staged a whole bunch of different pictures. We cast it. I had the actors cast their friends in certain roles. So it was very collaborative, this whole process. And so we assigned different people to take different photos. And you will see lots of familiar faces in the photos. And then we just shot, and then we loaded them. And then our designer, Leslie Wright, who's incredible, put her hands on every single photo and curated every single photo, chose the best ones to put where, and matched it all 800 photos up in the script. And then other ones, some nights myself and the stage manager would say, okay, you two, we have to do these shots outside at night, let's go. And we put on our coats and we go and we find a spot on campus and we shoot a bunch of shots. Right. And then there were some shots that actually are photoshopped. So, and that is also part of the whole arc of the piece, which we can talk about.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned earlier when off camera, what is the reality and what is, and because there are certain aspects where you go, is that really true? And is
Right.
that real? Is that fantasy? Are they making that up? So the play moves from sort of very everyday, like parties, which we expect. This is me at a party. We expect that from this demographic, right? You totally expect all the party pictures. And then they move into other things. And so because the whole thing is about a competition and everyone is trying to make a good impression on the audience or a better impression, in the back of their mind, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me, right? So that they slowly start one-upping each other and it slowly starts to escalate. And so what I've tried to do is sort of create that escalation so that it's very seamless, and then you're like, and then they start to compete. And the harder they compete, the more desperate they get to win, the more exaggerated the photos get, and then you realize that they're photoshopping a lot of themselves in, right? That or what they're doing is they're taking a mundane photo and giving it a title that is much more exciting than what it really is.
Oh, neat.
Do you know? So they're actually speaking verbally. This is me doing something exciting, but it's me just sitting in a chair, right? But I could be on the French Riviera waiting for a spy to come and give me some documents, but it's just me sitting in a chair, right? You know what I mean? So it's how you label it, right?
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Because that sort of goes back to my first question about the sort of openness of the text. Because the text just says photo. So by creating a contrast between what we see and what the character says, you as the director have essentially well, I mean, this is where you have shaped the play into a production that says something quite specific about a moment that in the play is sort of left open and maybe puzzling.
Right. And for me, that's where the whole social commentary comes in the sense that, because we're seeing now, and you know, one of the things that, let me just go back a second. So one of the things that we have now, so the play was written in 2016, where social media was on its ascension, right? It was up, it was everything this. But now, even more so. So I feel like we have taken this play and updated it, not in the sense that we changed the text, but that we've updated it in the sense that the amount of photoshopping and AI backgrounds that we can do now is more advanced than what we could do in 2016, right? And so, those Photoshop things and those AI backgrounds are available now to everyone.
Yeah.
Whereas in 2016, you had to know a little bit more about this kind of technology to do it, but now it's available to every person who wants to do it. So what I wanted to do was also show how in their desperation to compete, to be on top, to have the best, the most exciting, the grossest, the most fantastical, the most shocking photo, is that they then start photoshopping themselves in to different scenarios so that it builds and builds and builds. So in that sense, I feel like we've not updated, but we've kept it current in terms of what are the possibilities. Whereas even in 2016, you could Photoshop some stuff in, but now it's amazing what you can do. You know? So Leslie Wright, again, our designer, is a wizard, and she just did some amazing cropping, photoshopping, this and that to see. So what I want the audience to feel is like, is that real, or did they make that up, or did they really go there, or did they Photoshop that in? But that's the whole thing about you know what we can do now. I mean, social media is full of fake news, right? It's full of fake shots. It's full of fake everything, and we don't know what's real and what's not anymore. And for me, that's the social commentary, is what is it about us as a society that wants so desperately to have more followers and have more people watch us, and that what are the lengths that we will go to in order to win? In order to be the most popular.
You know, that's really interesting. I mean, you're sort of making sense to something that dramaturgically. To something that to me was actually kind of hard to figure out in the play. Because the competition is clear with the positive stuff. But I mean, the arc of the play, without giving anything away, I mean, the arc of the play is sort of that the competition is about doing good things, basically, and they become crazily good and impossible.
And then there's also the competition about doing the bad things.
That's right. But to read that as a competition, I think is really, to read that dynamic as essentially the same, and it's just a way of gaining attention.
Well, that's just my take on it. I don't like another director might do something else,
but it makes
for
perfect
me,
sense.
that was the only way that I could get my head around it, in terms of who these people were and why they were bringing this up, and also setting this context of this kind of pseudo reality kind of show.
Yeah.
which
An attention economy. basically.
attention,
Yeah, that's-
getting the attention on me. What are the things that I do to get attention on me? And what are the lengths that we'll go to? And then, the one question that's asked is, can you go too far?
Right.
Which
Yeah.
which sort of, we'll see that
You will see.
in the play.
Right.
And what happens when you go too far? And, can you go too far? Or is
Yeah.
there no limit? Do you know?
So I've one more question about process. Maybe that's
Yeah.
the last one. But when I was reading the play, it's the frame of reference in 2016 is interesting, right? I knew most of the bands.
Right.
I could relate. I was surprised by how relatively classical the canon of novels that they refer to was. But a lot of the frame of reference felt very familiar.
Yeah.
Which made me think, well, but that means it is out of date to our students, at least to some extent. So did you sort of keep that what is by now a historical frame of reference, or did you update it?
Well, that was something that we talked about.
Yeah.
And what's interesting now, I find, is that folks in their early 20s now have because everything is so accessible.
Right.
They have such an eclectic taste in music that I thought, do I update or do I not? And I could have updated with a few little things here and there, but I decided to leave it because I do, like, so often, like, someone who's 22 will say to me, oh, that band, like, Joy Division. I'm like, I listened to that in the 80s. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh no, I listened to. I'm like, okay, whatever, So I feel like that they have access and they're interested in such a wider array of music, because when I was growing up, I had to buy a record or buy a CD, and I'm not going to buy a CD just because I'm curious about something, or a record because it's too expensive. But now there's the accessibility. They have any kind of music at their fingertips.
Yeah.
Or we'll talk, was there a song about this? And everybody's on their phones going on YouTube. Can I find this? Oh, yeah. How about this one? How about this version? How about that version? Right? So it's accessibility is everywhere. So we decided not to update. And also, a lot of the people there are very, like, you have people like Beyonce on the list and Rihanna, and they're very current right now.
But who wasn't there?
Who? Taylor Swift. I know. That's the one that was missing, but you know what? That's okay. Taylor gets enough attention anyway, right? She's got a big social media following.
Actually, I think that is a very good place to end.
Right?
Cool. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing the show.
Well, I'm looking forward to having you see it. I'm curious as to the audience reaction.
Right.
Because it can, when I first saw the play, it irritated me.
Right.
Good. I was mad. I actually got really angry when I saw the play.
That seems like a good place to start.
Well, yeah, when I first, because I actually saw the version that they did here in Toronto. I was a co-production between Théâtre Français and Canadian Stage, and the actors did it in French and in English.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, I was so irritated. I was mad. I walked out of the theater being, I'm mad. Who are these narcissists? I was thinking to myself, what a dumb play. That's so stupid. All social media. But then it stayed with me and it stuck with me, and then I had to go back and ask myself, why did it stay with me?
Yeah.
Why did I feel so triggered by it? I thought, that's good. That's what theater should do. Theater should provoke us.
Yes.
Theater should make us think, and it made me really start to think about society and social media and how it's overtaking us, and how children are given it when they're 2 years old now, and what are the ramifications to that?
Yeah. And it's only got worse.
Yeah, it's only gotten worse. And so that's why when the opportunity came to direct it, I said, yeah, you know what? Let's take this on, because it struck me, and it really affected me in a really strong way. And I think that theater should affect us, whether, I may not like the play, but I think it's I'm not going to say I don't like the play, but that's not the case. But when I saw it, I thought I didn't like it, but I realized that it really, really affected me.
Yeah. But it doesn't seem like the kind of play that should leave one happy. I think it would be really kind of weird if one walked out of that show.
So that's why I think it's really great, and it's very current. It's very apropos for a university production as well.
Yes.
Because some of the actors have said to me, "Oh my gosh, like I get this. I get this because I feel like I'm obsessed with social media."
Right.
And it's really interesting to explore this.
Yeah.
So I hope that people will find it interesting and compelling.
So do we all, starting this Thursday at the Arundel Studio Theatre and running through, Mikey, when?
November 4th.
November 4th. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was good.